Hey everyone, welcome back to another midweek vision update, Sunday recap. One of my favorite things to do in these videos is just to share a little bit of additional insights that just didn't have time to share over the weekend. I loved that story of David and his troops there waiting for God and hearing the marching of the armies of God in the treetops. As I was researching that passage, one of the things I read about multiple times was that another teaching of that passage was to encourage the people of Israel that David really was going to be a king and a leader after God's own heart. One of the things that got his predecessor Saul in trouble was when the prophet Samuel said, "Go and wait for me. I'll come offer the sacrifice and then fight the battle." And in his anxiety and nervousness and impatience, Saul couldn't wait and went ahead, offered the sacrifice himself, got himself in trouble. And in this story, when David inquires of the Lord, sees victory. The next battle, he inquires of the Lord, and it's a high stakes battle. And God says, march around behind and then wait in the trees until you hear the footsteps of the army of God. And David goes and David waits and lets God go before him and then follows what God is doing. Was a story to encourage the people that David was a man after God's own heart, and David was walking after God and was going to wait on God. So another insight from that story that we looked at this weekend. Well, today in the vision communication update, I wanted to want to share with you a big piece of the prayer and conversations and research again that we have been having over the last year. So a little over a year ago, when we shared vision, our vision to share Jesus with not only our own circles of influence, but our entire community and communities around us. And that a key part of that strategy was to learn how to be one church with multiple campuses. And I shared with you that I just, after a lot of prayer, had been sensing God was leading us to look to the east. And that I believed that looked like East Ridgefield. And with all the growth and things happening and homes that are being built and people living on the east side of Ridgefield and folks living east side of Ridgefield not all that often coming to downtown Ridgefield to start a second campus there. Over the last year, as we have prayed and considered and talked and done some more research, it just seems like East Ridgefield is not yet. I believe that there will be a time pretty soon when there's a school there and a greater sense of community, that East Ridgefield, east of I-5, will be ready for a brand new church community. Whether it's us or another church that starts there will be a blessing to that neighborhood, but that right now, and for us, it's not yet. So then if not yet, then where? And I've just sensed the Lord leading us to start our second campus in La Center. La Center, and we have so many of our own people who live in La Center, have lived in La Center, and La Center is this thriving community, and it is a place increasingly where people want to be. Lots of new homes, new people moving in and finding home in the city of La Center. Most recent population estimate has about just over 4,000 people living in La Center, and that number is expected to double by 2035. Now, I know there's a lot of conversation about people moving in and all that kind of stuff and local politics that go along with that. I invite you just to hit the pause button on wherever your thoughts may go there. But at the same time, think, when we talk numbers and people might say, why do numbers matter so much? Well, numbers don't matter. They're just numbers. But numbers represent people. You see, when we talk about 4,000 people, that's just not a crowd. That's 4,000 individual people who are known by God. Like God knows every one of their names. He knows their story. 4,000 people for whom God has a plan for their lives. But if the statistics are what they are in other cities, a majority of those people don't know God, and they're not following his plan for their life, and they've not been set free by the good news of Jesus. So lots of people who matter to God. There are about 1,800 students going to La Center schools. 1,800 kids and students who need to know about Jesus. And if they would just give their lives to Jesus at a young age, the amazing things that they could experience and some of the pain that they could be kept from by knowing Jesus at a young age. And so we have a whole bunch of people who need Jesus, who need a church community, who need a youth group to be a part of, because God has given the world the church and churches as lifelong discipling communities to help people grow in their faith and live out their mission through the ministry of the church. And so what's currently happening in La Center? Well, there are 2 churches in La Center. And we just do not view other churches as competition. As long as we're preaching and teaching Jesus, we're all on the same team. But those churches, by themselves, they can't reach. How many services would it take those 2 churches to be able to have a seat for everybody in the city of La Center who wants to come to church? And so we believe God's already at work. God's already doing good work through those churches, and even through some people who are not yet connected to a church in the center. And we want to join what God is doing. And so we are going to start, we'll start praying over and talking more about what's happening in the city of La Center. If you live in La Center, I'm going to especially encourage you to begin to look around and to pray and to ask God to open your eyes and show you all of the ways that he's already moving and already working. Those are gospel inroads that we would just love to be a part of if God would let us be a part of that. And so we're looking at the city of La Center for that second campus. Pray with us if you would. In our Pray First series we have coming up in July. We're gonna have special. I'm gonna invite us to do some prayer walks. Just a little bit of a heads up there, and I would love it if we would just prayer walk the streets and sidewalks and neighborhoods of La Center and just pray God's blessing over the city. Now, the next question you might ask is, but where in La Center? Like, where would we build a church? Or is there a building that could be, kind of remodeled, retrofitted into a church? Great question. That's the question that I'm going to address next week in next week's update video. So I hope you will look for us early to the middle of next week, and we'll have the next part of this conversation. Until then, be praying, and I hope to see you this Sunday for worship.